Welcome to the Rime Buddhist Center's Dharma Talk podcast, Achieving Peace Through Compassion. This podcast is a recording of the Dharma Talks given during our Sunday service. This talk was given by Lama Matthew Palden Gocha.
So today I wanted to reflect on a profoundly simple yet challenging invitation from the Buddha. An invitation to look within ourselves and see reality just as it is. And this comes from the Pali Sutta or Sutta on inner self-examination, where the Buddha guides us to reflect honestly and directly on the roots of suffering. Not somewhere out there, but within ourselves. And today's Dharma talk is breaking the illusion, the three marks of existence, and the end of suffering. So picture the scene. In the Pali Sutta on inner self-examination, the Buddha is staying in a small town called Kamasadhamma, and he calls to the community of monks, mendicants, and the monks respond, "Yes, Lord." Then the Buddha asks a piercing and direct question. Do you perform inner self-examination? And one monk answers honestly, "Yes, Lord." But when the Buddha asks how, the monk falters. He hadn't gotten to the depth of the inquiry the Buddha was pointing towards. So the Buddha compassionately guides him and all of us in a way of looking directly at the roots of suffering. The first observation the Buddha makes is this: how does suffering arise? And let's look at what the Buddha tells the monks. He says, take a mendicant who performs inner self-examination. The suffering that arises in the world starting with old age and death takes many and diverse forms. But what is the source of this suffering? When what exists do old age and death come to be? And when what does not exist do old age and death not come to be? While examining, they know the suffering that arises in the world starting with old age and death. The source of this suffering is attachment. When attachment exists, old age and death comes to be. And when attachment does not exist, old age and death don't come to be. They understand old age and death, their origin, their cessation, the fitting practice for the cessation. And they practice in line with that path. This is called a mendicant who is practicing for the complete ending of suffering, for the cessation of old age and death, end quote. This is a key shift. Instead of constantly looking outside of ourselves, blaming people, conditions, events, the Buddha invites us to look within. Where is suffering arising? Where is it originating? Where does it come from? Where does it come to rest? He traces it back to attachment, which itself comes from craving. Whenever we cling to a feeling, a view, a possession, we suffer. Whenever we wish to hang on, we become bound. This inquiry reveals the three universal characteristics, what we call the three marks of existence: impermanence, suffering or unsatisfactoriness, and non-self. Again, the Pali Sutta says, there were ascetics and Brahmins of the past who saw the things that seem nice and pleasant in the world as impermanent, as suffering, as non-self, as diseased, and as dangerous. They gave up craving, and giving up craving, they gave up attachments. Giving up attachments, they gave up suffering. Giving up suffering, they were freed from rebirth, old age, and death, from sorrow, lamentation, pain, sadness, and distress. They were freed from suffering, I say, end quote. And together these illuminate how we suffer and how we can become free. Everything we experience in our relationships, our health, possessions, thoughts, and emotions is in constant state of change. The body we are born into is not the body we have today. The person we were 10 years ago is not the person we are now. Our preferences, our beliefs, our desires, all these fluctuate and change, passing away. Picture the changing seasons, the falling of leaves in autumn, the blooming of flowers in spring. This flow, this change is not a defect in the universe. It is the nature of all conditioned things. So how do we apply this? That's a pretty good question. Whenever we find ourselves clinging to our youth, health, relationships, maybe our achievements, this understanding lets us open our grip. We realize we're trying to hang on to something meant to pass. And instead of resisting, we learn to flow with change. Importantly, this view transforms suffering into peace because we are no longer surprised or anguished when things change. Because we pursue happiness in things that are unreliable in people, roles, possessions, this guarantees dissatisfaction. We buy a new phone. We get a rush of happiness until we drop it, or a newer phone comes out. We find a relationship. Feels perfect until the first fight or the eventual fading of passion. We pursue achievements, promotions, accolades. But as soon as we realize it's not enough, we want more. This is dukkha. This is suffering. A deep, pervasive dissatisfaction, a suffering that permeates conditioned life. The practice here is self-observation, and we ask ourselves honestly, where do I suffer when I hang happiness on something external? We become compassionate with ourselves. We realize suffering isn't a punishment. It's a universal human experience, a sign we're looking for happiness in all the wrong places. Non-self doesn't mean we do not exist. It means we are not permanent, independent entity. Instead, we are a collection of conditions. Our body, our feelings, perception, formations, and consciousness. Ever-changing, interconnected, but without a permanent center. Picture a bicycle. It's made of wheels, a frame, a seat, handlebars. But if you take it apart, there is no bicycle left. It was just a convenient label. Similarly, when we say I, but when we search for a permanent, independent self, nothing substantial is there. This is profoundly freeing. Whenever we find ourselves suffering from our ego, or whether we are defensive, proud, ashamed, separate, this view lets us ease up. We realize we are not a fixed self, but a flow of conditions, interdependent and connected. And that understanding naturally brings compassion for ourselves and for all, since we all suffer under the same conditions. So again, how can we practice this in a way that we can live it? And this isn't a one-time inquiry. It's a practice we do again and again and again and again. We continually check in. Where is my attachment? Where is my craving growing? Where am I mistaking something dangerous for desirable? This teaching isn't meant for a cave high on a mountaintop or a distant future. It's meant for now, and it's meant for all of us. Whatever we face in daily life, relationships, goals, disappointments, we can apply this inquiry. Watch your mind's reaction when you're cut off in traffic or misunderstood in a conversation. Ask yourself, where is the suffering arising? Who is feeling offended? Who is this I that feels so injured? Look for change. This feeling is not permanent. Look for unsatisfactoriness. This suffering comes from attachment. And look for non-self. This is not a permanent me. It's a collection of conditions. In the sutra, the Buddha described this through a powerful metaphor. Picture a cup or a goblet filled with a delicious drink, brilliant color, sweet smell, but it's laced with poison. If we drink it, we suffer. The nice appearance deceives us. But once we know it's poison, we naturally let it go. So it is with conditioned things. They may seem desirable, But if we pursue them blindly, ignoring their true nature, this leads to suffering. Awareness lets us release and move towards liberation. This path is not meant to withdraw us from the world. It transforms how we live in the world. We become less reactive and more compassionate. We respond to suffering with understanding instead of aggression. We appreciate each moment without clinging to it. This transforms relationships, workplaces, and our communities because we are no longer adding to suffering. So this is the path of the Buddha that invites us to follow, turning inward, discovering the true nature of conditioned things, impermanent, unsatisfactory, non-self, and letting this knowledge permeate our daily lives. We suffer less, we become more compassionate, and we find peace. A peace that is not dependent on conditions. So thank you for honoring this path, for turning inward, for breaking through this illusion. I hope that this talk has been beneficial to you. May your week be filled with compassion, wisdom, gratefulness, and joy.
Thank you for listening to the Rime Buddhist Center's Dharma Talk podcast. Music was provided by Barefoot Bran Music. Please consider supporting the Rime Buddhist Center by making a donation at our website at www.rimecenter.org/donate.